But in this landscape of pharma companies, they make a lot of money. Some people are worried about the impact of those, of big pharma on the landscape of human trauma.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's, of course, some companies could do good, but that's not inherent. Like many of these companies are not optimizing for good; they're optimizing for profit.
Exactly.
So how do you? Does this rise of for-profit pharma companies worry you? How do you navigate it? Do we still have for-profit companies that basically do what MAPS does, which is like fight the good fight for the benefit of humanity? Like what? Like how do we proceed in this landscape where drugs can make a lot of money?
Yeah. Well, I am concerned. Overall, I think the rise of the for-profit companies, we have to realize, is a sign of success. That we have overcome the regulatory prohibitions. We've overcome a lot of the public attitudes that are against it. We've demonstrated some success. So the rise of the for-profit companies are a sign of the progress that we've made. On the other hand, turning things over to profit-maximizing companies, the big concern is that they're going to try to minimize the amount of therapy and make it so the cost is less, so insurance companies are more likely to cover it, and then that they just sell the most drugs.
Yeah.
The other thing we've seen as an example of this is S-ketamine by Johnson & Johnson for depression, and it's done by a profit-maximizing company. They don't know anything about psychedelic psychotherapy or psychotherapy at all, and so they've gotten approval for S-ketamine on the basis of it's just a pharmacological treatment, and it's not delivered with therapy. The results fade pretty quickly, so you need to get more ketamine. And so it's designed in a way to maximize the profits for the pharmaceutical company, but it doesn't maximize patient outcomes. What we're seeing, though, in these various clinics that are being set up is that a lot of people are realizing that it works better with therapy. And so the clinics are run by people that are therapists, so that when they provide therapy, they're making more money. And then you need less ketamine. Also, ketamine itself, S-ketamine is a isomer of ketamine that's been patented for depression, and they sell it for hundreds of dollars. But ketamine itself is one of the world's essential medicines. It's off patent. It's been around for a long time. It was the main battlefield anesthetic in Vietnam. And it's only a few bucks because it's generic. So a lot of the ketamine clinics are saying, great, thank you, Johnson & Johnson. You've helped demonstrate that ketamine is good for depression, but we're not going to buy it from you. We're going to buy it for a few bucks, and we're going to add therapy to it. Now, there's a bunch of ketamine mills, you could say, that are just prescribing the ketamine, and people are making a lot of money there. So I am worried about that. I think the best thing that we can do is create an alternative narrative, a different kind of example. We can lead by example. We can't make for-profit companies into benefit corporations unless they want to do that. We can't make them to, really maximize patient outcomes. But if we create an example of something that's different, the hope is that people will gravitate towards that, and some of the other companies, like even now we have Exxon and other these companies, oil companies, saying, "Oh, we're big into alternative energy, and we're,
And that starts with companies that show an example that then communicates to the public that this is something exciting, and then they demand of the same of Exxon and so on.
Yeah.
The public demands it, and you could say the same thing for the public demanding the big pharma to optimize for benefit versus optimize for profit, and maybe giving power to the therapists, more power to the therapists, more power to the doctors that ultimately want. I think incentives are interesting, but I think doctors ultimately care more because they're in direct contact with humans. They want to make people better. It's not, sure, they want to make money, but they ultimately want to make people feel better because they get to look at people, and it's so joyful to make people feel better at the end of the day. So giving more power to them is also perhaps one of the ways that you then incentivize the pharma companies that are trying to do good. because the doctors will choose those companies.
Yeah. Now, the other part of this is drug policy reform.
Right.
So that if we make it so that you can buy MDMA for 10 or 20 bucks on your own, and we've trained people on here's our therapeutic method, here is our ways for peer support, then people have an alternative from buying it from the pharma companies. Mm-hmm. So most of the for-profit companies have come to this conclusion that drug policy reform is bad for their business model. I think they're making a fundamental mistake. And I think the reason is that the more that we destigmatize this, the more that we sensitize people to this is an approach. Even when people can get it on their own and do it with their friends or do it with themselves, there's going to be even more people that say, oh my God, I've got real serious issues. I would rather go to trained professionals covered by insurance, and I think it'll increase the business. But most of the for-profit companies don't see it that way. And so as a nonprofit that owns a benefit corp, we're not trying to maximize sales or profits. So that, but I do believe that drug policy reform creates this alternative access point for people, and that will help keep the for-profits in check to some extent as well.
I love it.